All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Grow Rogue podcast. I'm your host, Reed Milner. I run a RevOps agency called Rogue Pine, and today I'm talking to Rich Plumery. Rich, thank you so much for joining me on the Grow Rogue podcast.
I appreciate you having me on, be able to share my story and talk a little bit to your listeners.
Great. Well, I want to jump right in. You have a really interesting, we'll call it an origin story. It's not so much an origin for you personally, but it's an origin for your methodology and for your leadership style and for your mission, if you will. Would you mind sharing that again? I really enjoyed hearing that in our first conversation. I know our audience would as well.
Yeah, I've had kind of a unique upbringing, and especially in my career and such. I wasn't in much of a career path until my late 20s. And then I started with a job out in the middle of the Pacific on a little island a half-mile wide by 2 miles long as a timekeeper, which is the most menial gopher type of job you could have on a construction site. And it opened my eyes up into really the world of construction and engineering and design and those things and what the possibilities were for that. So it created a thirst for learning for me early on. I had been in sales before, didn't sell telephone systems and the things back in the day, and then transitioning to this was really a different career. I learned to code, I learned to track quantities for projects, I learned a lot of the different things and learned how to work with people quite a bit, which was really good and really centered me for moving forward in what I was going to take on for my career. I moved from that island out into Honolulu for 10 years where I got to work and manage that project and learn more about contract negotiations and things along that line and really managing operations and maintenance of that project from afar. Later on, I did some unique things. I got into claims management for construction. And with that, learned a lot about negotiations and how to position yourself, how to study for those things, how to learn to deal with people, which I took a lot of that from my sales background. Really how to read people and understand people and really anticipate kind of where they're going with things. With that behind me, I had exited the business. I started something really unique. I got in a tactical supply business, starting that up for the elite military units. So working with the guys who were the founding members of SEAL Team 6 and Red Cell, which were two really unique things. These were the plank owners or founding members. So these were the best of the best of the best in elite military. So I got a chance to work with them and educate myself with what they thought about, how they thought about things, and things that I was able to bring to some of the things I do now with leadership, right? One of the things from the SEAL Team 6 guys was something they called silent execution, right? Perfect mission was to go out there and do it and not know anybody, know it even happened, right? Not even realize something had even happened. And it was a successful mission, but you didn't create any waves, right? You didn't create disruption. And I learned that, how helpful that was for the business that I became involved in later. Also worked with athletes. So I sold that business pretty quickly and got a chance to start a sports performance training center. My daughter was a 10-year-old soccer player. She was at that age where she's going through growth spurts and made it really awkward for her. She was, having all the extremity issues, she can control of things, and that doesn't help a tall kid in soccer. So we got her with a sports performance coach, and she learned some of the techniques for neuromuscular control and such. So I decided, hey, this could be something a lot of parents could use. So I ventured into it, learned a lot more, hired one of the best coaches in the world, and he taught me a lot about really how to deal with athletes and deal with teams and really how to be a servant leader, how to serve the athlete, how to support the athlete, how to protect them from things as they went through their career. So a lot of preventative stuff, which was really unique and interesting for me. I got to meet some of the best athletes in the world that came into my center. So that was neat. And I worked with a guy named Greg Roscoff, who had put his first center within mine. And Greg was one of the most elite rehab people in the world. So he'd worked with Utah Jazz and Denver Nuggets and other teams, and was actually the guy who changed Grayson DeChambeau as a golfer to build him up and do that. And I learned how to sell value through Greg. Greg was about selling the value of his services and the results of his services, not just the hourly rate type of sell that most people do. So that brought me back into engineering because I sold that business after about 8 years and got back into engineering construction and got into leadership. And that really changed my view on leadership. I'd seen it from the other side, and now I had become a leader and be able to take those things to task and employ them in what I did in serving the teams I led. So that became the start of really palms up leadership for me. And I developed the practice of what I call my process framework, which is going through the process of enabling. So enabling teams to have the things they need to do to be more efficient and effective in what they do. Engaging them in the work, so deeply engaging them so they weren't apathetic. They were deeply engaged in what they had to do and took ownership of it. And then on the embrace side, really how to coach and mentor them and guide them through things. And I got really good at turning around projects and turning around businesses. So that was just learning to come alongside teams and not berate them, but learn from them, guide them, coach them, and walk them through the process of how to turn things around, how to make better decisions, and execute better for the company. And so that led to more things, and I created the posture framework within that, which was serve, support, and protect. So in your serve, support, and protect, it applies greatly to sales, right? So really serve the seller, not the numbers. Serve them, make them better with what they're able to accomplish and how they can focus more on their work. A little story on my daughter. My daughter, Carissa, was fresh out of college. She was interviewing for jobs. She had taken a job with Berkshire Hathaway as an insurer and didn't know if that was quite the right fit for her. So she was continuing to interview, and she got an interview with Humana, who was doing Medicare sales. And she became intrigued with that. She liked working with older generations and working with those people to help them get through things and serve their needs and such. So she joined Humana. She got a great package from them. And she did so well. She was the number one salesperson in Colorado and then became one of the top ones in the country. So she got a lot of recognition at an early age. She was only 25 years old at the time. And so they wanted to raise her up and taking that step into leadership. So they made her a sales manager for the sales team. Well, that brought on new challenges because leading those generations where the salespeople were twice her age. She was 25. Most of them were 50s or in their 60s. So she had learned from me the servant leadership approach. So she took that to heart and she started serving the sellers, literally serving them, doing brochures for them, making copies for them, whatever she could do to help them. And they had expected the person, this new hotshot kid, to come in and kind of show them the way and talk to them down with her high DU MBA type education, how she just knew it all. But she didn't come from that. She came from a servant approach, and they bought in. And she created that team and grew that team, and they became the number one sales team in the country with her leading it. So it just, some of the things that you can do in sales that really help the team is to serve the sellers, not just the numbers, right?
So I'm really curious about this. So it sounds like the way that your daughter was able to employ this framework, almost, from a down up perspective, right? She came in very new. Can you tell me from your experience about organizations that implement this framework from a top down perspective? How do you identify maybe it's the right person to lead this internally, or is it something that you will typically encourage, a workshop or something like that? I mean, what's the best way that you've seen this implemented in, sales organizations of maybe not quite as large as Humana, but even in, that 50 or, to 150 or so sales size of sales team?
Right. It's teaching the right type of leadership and promoting that type of culture. It's a culture shift. And that's the biggest thing, is to make sure you've got the right culture in place. Well, you need leaders to help drive that culture. So from the top-down perspective, it's telling the teams that you are there to serve, support, and protect them. You are there to be a big help to them. And you create leaders that will do so, right? So those leaders will go out and really be the grassroots. They're the connections to the team. They're the connection to your functional groups. When I did this, I was asked to turn around a region, which was struggling with sales and struggling with execution and everything else. And they had 15 odd troubled projects. And I went in with my approach, and the senior leadership learned right away how I was able to grasp and connect with the teams and how to really build trust. And that's where the key is to build trust with them, that they understood that you were authentic in what you were trying to do. A lot of people can talk the talk. It's walking the walk and showing them just how to do it, how to engage with others, right? How, even on a troubled project where the team was down and defensive about things, that no, we didn't do anything wrong, how to go in and coach them and guide them and lift their spirits and really show them how to do it the right way, how to do it the ethical way, how to create better attitude, how to create better energy with their team, right? I taught them how to sell value, right? So if they were selling change orders to a client, one thing I did, I would go in there and I would show them, hey, we're going to go in there with a cost value of this much for these change orders. But I know the value to them is much higher. So we're going to sell the value. We're not going to talk cost with this client. We're going to talk about the value and what they needed and approach it from that perspective. And by doing that, I got 3 times what we would normally have gone in and priced it at, just based on cost. And they were ecstatic to get it because it was something they really needed. And they knew they needed it. They just needed to convince their management that they needed it and they could get it for the right price. So those types of things, fitting into that culture and building that culture was paramount, right? And then they asked me to do it, to grow it across all the Americas. So I went around with my group and I went region to region. There were 10 of them. So this was a lot of work to prepare and really understand their needs in each of the regions. And same you would do with the sales team. What are their needs? What are they doing? Where are they finding challenges? And how do we help them overcome those challenges, right? And how do we do it by coming alongside them and showing them how to do it? It's a lot different when you just pontificate to them than when you actually teach them how to make those decisions. So a lot of what I did was teaching decision making. And that's still what I talk a lot about in my books. It's how you make a decision, right? And one of the things I use is called the pause progression. With the pause progression, just like with you're dealing with someone in sales, you pause. listen, pause, reflect on what they said, right? What do I know? What do I need to know? What more do I need to know to help them to do what they need to do? Then I select a posture. So I select a posture from serve, support, or protect, and how any one of those can be employed to fit this situation with this client, right? Or this team. And then I act deliberately. So you plan it out, you pick your posture, and you execute it deliberately and with conviction. And so they have confidence that you know what you're saying, they get trust in it, and they believe your solution will be the right thing for them.
So I think this is great. I think what you I'm curious to get your thoughts on this actually. So in, we'll call it the modern workplace, which is such an irritating phrase, right? But work looks different today than it did even, 5 years ago, 10 years ago for sure. Especially when it comes to where people actually are. Yeah. What you describe is a very it's an exemplary form of teaching is the way that I kind of take that in. Is if I see a leader doing things a certain way, then I'm going to learn from that. Now, of course, there's actual curriculum that you've discussed, but have you found and have you seen any tactics or examples of how to demonstrate those things when we maybe aren't in the same room, we're working remotely, and we're probably even communicating less and less because of all the asynchronous communication tools, Slack, Teams, what have you? Curious to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's become a lost art with the COVID and what COVID did to us and really drove everything to remote work. We have a lot of that, and we're a global business that we run. So we're as disparate as you can be. We're spread out all over the world, all over time zones and everything else. But you got to find the commonality. There is commonality with everyone, right? There's certain things that they look for that are important to you and important to everybody else. So those are the things I look for when I'm looking at dealing with remote work and decision making, which is also an issue that happens when you have disparate teams in different places, seeing different things and trying to make decisions based on the same, in my case, projects, right? How do we make a decision on what we do next in this project? And what I do is what I call shared values and shared vision. And it's really talking about the vision, talking about the values that we all possess, what we want to get to, so that when it happens, people know what to do. I learned from the military discussions that something called shared consciousness, and it's in the book Team of Teams. And it's very interesting in that I use it in all my staff calls. So my staff's all over the world, everywhere. And so I have a very collaborative staff call. It's not just my staff, it's all the functional groups. And we talk about everything. They know how I think about things. That's the shared consciousness. And everybody reports up on what they're seeing, where they're at, right? So for sales, what are you seeing on the ground in your market? What are you seeing in this market? And everybody gets a chance to give their 5 to 10 minutes on what their vision is and what their perspective is and what their thoughts are on how to proceed on different things and if they see different obstacles. And then we collaborate and we work through them and we talk through them. So just like a SEAL Team 6 mission, they go out there, they have to adapt. They have to adapt in the way the things are when they actually see it in the field. That happens in sales all the time. It's not what you envisioned in the first place. You have to work through it on the fly. But if you know what the value is that you're trying to reach and the vision you're trying to create, and you know how your team should think about it, the shared consciousness thing, that's where we want to be. Having that vision, values is central to collectively working well with remote teams, right? So everybody's in sync with what they do, right? Being on camera is a big part of that as well. Just that presence, seeing the faces, connection. And I tell you, I'm big on sense of humor. Have some fun with it. People connect to sense of humor. I know in sales, most salespeople have a pretty good sense of humor. That's what I developed with my workbench team, was very intelligent people have a unique sense of humor, and it can be great, and we connect on a different level. And it kept us connected through really hard times, really tough decisions, and tough things when people fell down, especially when we're implementing things during COVID. How to pick each other up. When they got COVID, they're out of the scene. You can't do anything with them, right? We're doing on-site training. And all of a sudden, 2 of the key trainers went down with COVID in the hotel. So they were sequestered into their hotel room, and we had people step up. But we had all been collectively planning and collaborating. We knew how each other thought, and people stepped up and did the training and executed it flawlessly. And it was seamless to the people that were getting trained. But we knew, right, this was, another team doing it. But they were just able to step up and work for each other and get it done for each other. And it made the other people that were down feel a lot better knowing they had a capable backup to get through things.
So both of those are really great insights. I did want to say you reminded me of an article I saw. Let's see, at the time of this recording, it's been about a month since the recent mission to the moon, right? The trip around the moon, and a lot of stuff was coming out. And I saw something that NASA put out, or it was an article based on some comments made by NASA, and they said that one of the most valuable traits of an astronaut was actually a sense of humor, because you cannot have a higher pressure situation, right? I mean, there's no room for error on a space station, right, or on a rocket ship, and it can get really tense. And that's we've all experienced really highly stressful situations, ones that require sustained focus and that have a lot of implications. Now, we don't deal with the same level that astronauts do, or that members of SEAL Team 6 do. But being able to communicate with a team and to be the one to, in some sense, just lighten the mood, but also to make people feel like it's going to be okay, right? We're going to figure this out. We don't need to, be so tense. That's a really valuable skill. So it reminded me of that. But I also wanted to comment on your point about making people feel like there is support behind them, right? Because if I feel like I can go out there and just, doggone it, I can just give it my best shot, and I've got this support team behind me. And I think that's what we're getting at with building a systematic, a framework-driven approach to building a sales organization and building a growing organization. Then everybody is in the right position to do their best work. And so if you've got an organization that is investing in its people, and it's providing the right training, and it's providing the right systems behind it, I think this is where, the work that we tend to do and the work that you tend to do, that's where those two things really meet. It's that, an individual, sales representative, a sales executive, an account manager, whatever title they have, they really feel like, look, I've got all the tools. And I've got this great structure around me that I don't have to feel like there's so much daggum pressure on every single phone call. I can just go out and just do the best work that I know how, right? I've been armed with the skills and the training. I've got the technology. I've got the system, and I can enjoy my work. And if we're enjoying our work, we're going to do much better work, and we can be much more effective in our work. And so, when you describe all of that, when you talk through that framework, it just brings up that picture in my mind of, a harmonious working environment where people can really be, they can kind of be their best, right? So thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, and I think the efficiency part of it as well, right? It makes them much more efficient in what they do because the background players are clearing the bureaucracy, right? Making it easier for them to do their job. And that's the whole idea behind it.
That's right. Yeah. Well, Rich, I think that serves as a really great segue to what I always like to wrap these episodes up in is, some really practical takeaways here. Maybe talk to the founder or the leader or the sales department head who they may have found themselves in a new role and might have been a little bit of a mess that they're trying to clean up. What's their 5-step checklist that they should get started on right away to right the ship and really build the type of organization that you and I have described?
Listen, right? Number one, listen. Don't think you know it all, right? Listen, understand the problem. Get deep enough that you truly understand the problem and get it from enough perspectives that you think you've got the true root cause to it, right? What I find is people will go in and they'll lock on to one person or two people that have this narrow perspective of it and what's wrong and what needs fixed. And you need the broader perspective. So listen to all of them. Go out and broaden that perspective, right? Get the perspective from all the different angles you needed to get from, right? Start to solve the problem with them and alongside them and think through it with them. So the people that had the other opinion, you can talk them through and into the way you're trying to get that decision and that thing rectified, right? Just by bringing them alongside you. Here's what I see. I see this, and this. These are the KPIs that we're seeing going wrong. And we know that root cause of those is this, isn't this. So yeah, I understand what you saw and the perspective you have on it. Maybe you weren't exposed to all these things. So it'd be great to have you come alongside with me and let's get a look inside the numbers and see, how we can help solve this together. So really bringing them on board, even the naysayers, right? That's how you turn them around. You don't want to get people into a defensive position. So one thing, never back them into a corner. Always give a gracious way out, right? They're already feeling defensive. They're sending someone in to help save us. They're going to have a defensive attitude. You'll never get to the actionable mitigation or corrective action if everyone's in the defensive mode, right? They'll shield it. They'll hide it. They'll never get deep enough into layers to get to the true root cause. You have to get through to the things that are actionable right away before they become unactionable, right? So those are the things that I do. First thing, when I'm trying to turn around an organization or trying to turn around a project or trying to turn around just a personnel issue between people. We have group clashes and things. I'm sure you have it just as much in sales, where you deal with different personalities. Sales has heavy personalities to deal with, right? A lot of my time is spent really navigating that and getting commonality between the people so that they can come to an agreement. Maybe not, they agree to disagree, but they can tolerate it and get to a resolution.
Well, such is life, right? I mean, there's not going to be there's not going to be a situation where everybody agrees on everything, at least not for long, right? But figuring out how to move forward I saw a great quote from, I think it was Jeff Bezos actually. And he said, the phrase was, "I disagree, but I'm behind it 100%." And what he was describing was that even if he felt like, I don't think this is going to work, especially with those who he had chosen to lead certain areas, he was not going to have the attitude of like, well, I don't think this is going to work. I can't wait to see this crash and burn. That you might as well just not do it. It's going to guarantee that it won't work.
Exactly.
Whether that's I think in that example, he was talking about something to do, which was probably a $100 million revenue, source for them. But it could be something as simple as a marketing campaign we're going to run, or an outreach plan that we're going to execute.
Yeah.
If you have that attitude, it's not going to work. But if you have the attitude that says, "Hey, look, we got to come to an agreement, or we got to come to a decision. I don't necessarily agree with this, but from this moment on, I will be 100% behind it and in support of it. And I hope that I'm wrong. I'll be so happy if I'm wrong." I think that's a great mark of a leader. And I think that's what you're describing there. Before I close, I want to give you a chance to respond to that.
No, it's great. And that's part of the protect your culture as well, right? Divest of the bad, negative, right? Reward energy and attitude and making right decisions, but support it 100% in the end, right? Support performance with coaching, and really getting behind your team and letting them do their job the best of their ability, and clearing the roadblocks, the challenges they have to get it done, because others may not be believers in it. You may have to deal with other groups that aren't believers in it, but your job as the leader is to clear that way to get the buy-in from the others, so your team doesn't have to fight through all that stuff.
And I think that's a great way to close this. Rich, I really appreciate your time today. I've been taking notes like a madman. I think this is the funniest thing. I'm recording this, and we all have these, AI recorders and note takers. And for some reason, I still have, my pen and paper notebook nearby, and I'm taking notes because I just feel like, these are things that I want to make sure we can apply. And I hope that if you're watching this or if you're listening to this episode, you've taken a lot of notes yourself. Rich has a ton of resources that you can get access to. Rich, what's the best way for people to get some of those resources and get in touch with you?
Yeah, go to www.peakacuityadvisors.com.
And we will make sure that the link to that is in the description. If you're watching on YouTube, or if you're getting this from some other platform, check out the show notes. Rich, thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of the Grow Rogue podcast. And I really look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Such a pleasure talking with you. You have a good one. Do some good.